Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I unlocked my apartment door and almost tripped over a backpack. I am Nate, 27 years old and already confused. 5 little heads turned from my couch like I had interrupted a show. My girlfriend popped up from the floor with this huge bright smile. That smile felt wrong before she even opened her mouth. One kid had a video paused on my TV, remote in hand. Another was digging through a bowl of snacks like he lived here. 2 smaller ones sat cross-legged on my rug, whispering and giggling. The oldest just stared at me like I was the substitute teacher. For a second, I honestly checked the door number in my head. My girlfriend rushed over and pressed her hand on my chest. "Hey, you are right on time," she said, way too cheerful. Her fingers slid down and closed over my keys. She took them out of my hand like that was normal. Every part of me wanted those keys back immediately. "What is all this?" I asked, eyes still on the kids. "They are so excited to meet you," she answered, already turning away. She clapped once and told them to say hello to Nate. 5 voices hit me at different volumes and random words. It felt less like a greeting and more like a test. I dropped my bag by the door because there was nowhere else. One of the twins, I guessed, scooted over and poked it. "Do you have games in there?" he asked, already unzipping. "Hands off, buddy," I said as gently as I could. Inside, I was not that gentle at all. She glanced back at me when she heard my tone. "Relax, they are just curious," she said with this light laugh. That laugh always used to calm me down before. Right there, it sounded like someone dismissing a fire alarm. I felt my jaw tighten before I even noticed it happening. I stepped farther into the room and counted them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like I had misread before. "Whose kids are these?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "My sister and my cousin dropped them," she answered, voice drifting. The way she said "drop them" did not help at all. "So they just dropped them here?" I asked, looking at the door. "Yeah, it worked out perfect," she said, eyes back on the kids. "They love you already, look at them," she added, almost proud. One kid was now trying to stand on my coffee table. That was not my definition of love. I moved over and lifted the kid down with both hands. "Feet on the floor, little dude," I said, forcing a smile. He shrugged and ran off toward the hallway like nothing mattered. I watched him disappear toward my bedroom and felt my stomach drop. My stuff was not ready for a surprise kid invasion. "Can we talk for a second?" I asked, nodding toward the kitchen. She pretended not to hear me and knelt beside the smallest one. "Show him your drawing," she told the girl, voice all sweet. The girl held up a crumpled page with scribbles and hearts. I praised it, but my head was nowhere near that paper. While I mumbled something nice, my girlfriend studied my face. "You know that look someone gives when they test your limits?" She was doing that tiny smile, eyes just a bit too steady. I realized she wanted me to react a certain way. I just had no idea what the script was yet. "When did we agree to this?" I asked, finally pushing again. "We talked about helping more with family stuff, remember?" she said. Her hand brushed my arm like that settled the question. I did remember a vague conversation about being more supportive. I did not remember the part where 5 children moved in. Back then in that earlier chat, I shrugged and said sure. In my head that meant birthdays and maybe school plays. Now it apparently meant my apartment turning into a daycare. I know I should have pinned it down better. That vague little yes was punching me in the face now. "Okay, but what exactly is happening today?" I asked, slower. "Nothing crazy," she said, eyes darting away for half a second. "We are just watching them for a while, doing something helpful." That word "we" hit my ears harder than the rest. I had not signed up for a team project. "How long is a while?" I asked, heartbeat picking up. She grabbed a juice box from a bag and jabbed the straw in. "Do you have to be somewhere?" she asked, super casual. I did have plans, nothing huge, but still plans. Suddenly, those plans felt like the only lifeline I had. One of the older boys walked over and tugged my sleeve. "Are you the one playing games with us today?" he asked. His eyes were wide, hopeful, already convinced I was that guy. I looked down at him and felt this weird twist inside. Nobody warns you how guilty no can feel in moments like that. My girlfriend watched my hesitation and jumped in fast. "Of course he is, he has so many fun ideas," she said. She ruffled his hair and looked at me over his head. That look was not a question, it was a challenge. I could already feel the argument hiding behind it. I forced another thin smile and told the boy maybe later. His face fell just a little, not full disappointment yet. He trudged back to the couch and flopped down sideways. The room felt smaller, heavier, even though nothing physically changed. I knew I was already being marked as the boring adult. "Come on, you are good with kids," she said under her breath. She stepped closer, voice low enough for only me to hear. "This is important to me, do not be weird about it." Important to her, sure, but apparently my say mattered less. I could feel my patience starting to fray at the edges. "Can you just give me 2 minutes alone?" I asked quietly. She stared at me like I had suggested something outrageous. "They get anxious when adults disappear," she replied, eyes narrowing slightly. That sounded noble, but something in it felt off. It sounded more like she did not want me thinking clearly. I walked toward the hallway anyway and gestured for her. "Kids, we will be right back," she called out with a smile. No one even looked up for more than a second. She followed me into the kitchen, shoulders tense now. The second we were out of sight, my own mask slipped. "What did you tell your family I am doing today?" I asked. She leaned back against the counter and crossed her arms. "That we were watching the kids and you were happy to help," she answered. That word happy took the air right out of my lungs. So apparently my opinion had been filled in for me. "You told them I was happy to help," I repeated slower. "You like being the good guy," she said, almost teasing. "You always talk about wanting to show up more," she added. That was not a total lie, which made it worse. Twisting my own words on me felt like a cheap trick. I pulled my phone out and checked our last messages. There it was from earlier that morning, one short line. "Hope you are ready to be the hero today." I had sent a thumbs up and not thought twice. "Pass me really set, present me up for disaster." "Look, this is already happening," she said, nodding toward the room. "They are here, their parents left, they are counting on us." Us sounded very equal when the load clearly leaned my way. She knew once kids were involved, backing out looked cruel. That was the part that really started to scare me. I walked back to the doorway and watched them for a moment. One kid had found a ball and bounced it off the wall. The twins were arguing over a tablet that was definitely mine. The smallest girl spun in a slow circle, singing to herself. They moved like they expected hours, not minutes, inside my space. In that doorway, I had a very clear thought. I could shut this down now and look like a monster. Or I could go along and hope we talked later. Back then I still believed later would actually come. I had no idea this was just the opening move. I turned to call her name, trying to pick a side. Before I got a word out, the doorbell rang once. All the kids froze for half a second, then cheered. My girlfriend's face lit up like something had gone exactly right. That sound from the hallway told me my choice was about to shrink. The front door swung open before I even reached it. Her sister stepped inside fast, one foot already turning to leave again. "Perfect timing," she breathed out, handing over another stuffed bag. Behind her, a man I recognized only from photos hovered briefly. He gave me this quick, grateful nod, then glanced at his watch. "Thank you so much for today," he said, already backing toward the hall. "You are saving us, seriously, we owe you one." He squeezed her sister's shoulder, then vanished like he had a sprint start. I watched him disappear while my brain scrambled to catch up. Apparently, I had volunteered for something no one mentioned to me. The kids rushed him with questions, but he waved them off gently. "Listen to your aunt, listen to Nate," he called out from the hall. Then the outer door slammed, sharp and final, like a starting gun. 4 of the children barely reacted, like this was normal for them. I was the only person in that room who still looked lost. Her sister clapped twice and told them to calm down. "They know the routine," she said to me with a proud grin. "They adore hanging out here, they have been talking about it." I nodded slowly, because what else do you do with that? Inside, every alarm I have was lighting up at once. I tried to get a word in while the noise bounced around. "How long are you gone?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. "Not long," she answered, digging through her bag for her phone. "Couple hours, maybe a little more if things run late." That last part landed heavier than the rest of the sentence. "A couple hours for what exactly?" I pressed, still blocking the door. Work stuff, errands, some appointments, all that fun adult garbage. She laughed once, short and tired, like this was obviously justified. Then she leaned sideways to look past me into my living room. You guys will be fine, they love being here. My girlfriend slid in between us and touched her sister's arm. Go before you get stuck in traffic again, she urged. We have games, snacks, we will tire them out. She tossed me a look over her shoulder, quick and pointed. That look said, do not ruin this for me. I stepped closer enough that her sister had to pause. Hold on, I said, trying not to raise my voice. Did anyone ask me if this was okay today? Her sister blinked like the question was in another language. I thought you two talked, we set this up days ago. Right there I knew the answer, but I checked anyway. I turned toward my girlfriend, one eyebrow up, waiting. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then forced a smile. Yeah, we talked about helping more, remember our conversation? She reached for my hand like we were presenting a united front. Helping more is vague, I replied, pulling my fingers back. This is specific, this is 5 kids, this is my place. Her jaw tightened just enough for me to catch it. Her sister watched us carefully now, reading every tiny shift. For the first time, the kids stopped and looked over too. Okay, let me put it clearly, her sister cut in. You are watching them while we handle some important things. This really helps our whole family, we appreciate it. She spread her hands like the situation was simple math. In her mind, my part of the equation was already decided. I looked at the kids, then back at the 2 women. No matter where my eyes landed, I felt boxed in. If I pushed back, I was the heartless boyfriend who hates children. If I shut up, I became free labor with a smile. That is a great little trap, by the way. One of the younger boys wrapped his arms around my leg. Can we play that racing game again? He asked, looking up. Again, that word hit like a quiet punch in the chest. Apparently today was not their first fantasy of this setup. I had just never been told about the schedule. I crouched to his level because he deserved an honest face. We will see what happens, buddy, nothing is planned yet. He frowned a little, not upset, just confused by uncertainty. He let go and drifted back toward the others, still listening. Now my every word felt like it carried extra weight. I straightened up and turned back to the adults. You told them this was a thing already, I asked her. My girlfriend focused on her phone for a beat too long. They needed someone reliable, she muttered, thumbs still moving. They know you're solid, you followed through last time. Last time, another phrase that landed wrong. I thought back over the past few weeks in fast flashes. Apparently some casual hangouts had been rebranded as reliable childcare. I could feel my face heat up, partly anger, partly embarrassment. I hated realizing I had missed a pattern right under my nose. Her sister leaned one shoulder against the wall and sighed. Look, not everyone has support, she said, voice tired, not hostile. Daycare is expensive, sitters cancel, we are drowning most days. She nodded toward the kids like they were evidence on a table. You offering to help meant the world to us. There it was, the rewritten history delivered so calmly. I had never said those words, not the way she framed them. I had said I did not mind spending time occasionally. Now that small polite line had grown teeth and claws. I was apparently the hero they built an entire plan around. I can stay for 1 hour, I answered, choosing each word. After that I have to leave, I already arranged things. Her sister's mouth opened, then shut like she bit down on something. That is not enough time, she finally got out, eyes narrowing. We booked everything, we cannot just turn around now. My girlfriend stepped closer to me, almost blocking her sister's view. You are making this harder than it needs to be, she whispered. You know you did not have anything urgent today. I stared at her, stunned she threw that out so casually. Apparently my time only counted when someone else scheduled it. I pulled my arm free and took a step back. Do not tell me my day is empty, you do not know. Her eyes flashed, then cooled like she had switched gears. This is what family does, she said, voice low, almost rehearsed. They pitch in, they do favors, they do not nitpick details. That word family had sharp edges in that moment. We were not married, we did not share a home officially. Yet suddenly I was being measured like a reluctant relative. We had skipped a few steps and landed straight in obligation. It felt less like love and more like a performance review. Her sister checked the time again and shifted from foot to foot. Are we good here? She asked, eyes moving between us. Because if not, I need to call around and scramble. That last word hung there, heavy with implied selfishness on my part. Nobody wants to be the reason someone else panics. The smallest girl shuffled over with her stuffed toy. She held it up between us like a peace offering. Auntie said you always take care of us, she mumbled softly. Always, not sometimes, not when he feels like it. Always, like some permanent label secretly glued to my forehead. My girlfriend crouched and hugged the girl, using her as cover. Of course he does, she murmured into the kid's hair. Then she glanced up at me with a calm, steady gaze. It was not a question, it was a script she expected. She wanted me to step into the role without more noise. I felt this twist of shame because I did actually like them. They were loud, sure, and messy, but not bad kids. That made it harder, not easier, to push back. Turning them away felt cruel, even though this was not my doing. That is the part people skip when they judge from outside. I took a slow breath and tried another angle. Next time you need this, I want to be asked first. I kept my voice quiet so the kids only caught pieces. Today I will help for a little while, nothing ongoing. I figured that was a fair middle ground, at least for now. Her sister's eyebrows shot up like I had insulted her. Is this about money? She asked, almost defensive, almost offended. If you need us to pay, we can try to manage something. The way she stressed try made it sound like I was greedy. I suddenly felt like I had been shoved into a negotiation. It is about choice, I answered, shoulders tense, hands tight. Do not present me as signed up before I agree. My girlfriend exhaled sharply, more frustrated than surprised at this point. What matters is they are here and their parents are gone, she responded. You can rant later, right now they need adults who show up. There is no good instant comeback to that line. I stared at her, then at her sister, then at the floor. The kids had drifted into a cluster, whispering and watching us. They were picking up every piece of this without understanding the words. I could feel the version of me forming in their heads. Her sister finally grabbed her keys from the small table. I really wish this had been sorted before we arrived, she muttered. I am going to be late, I cannot stay here arguing. She kissed each kid on the top of the head quickly. Then she turned toward the door like the decision had been made. My girlfriend looked at me one last time before reaching for the handle. You are not the kind of person who lets people down, she murmured. It was compliment and accusation wrapped tightly together in one line. Then the outer door opened, and I watched them step into the hallway. I stood there with 5 expectant faces behind me and a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning. The lock clicked again, and I realized she had turned it from inside. She slid her keys into her pocket and grabbed her bag in one motion. Behind me, 2 of the kids were arguing loud enough to rattle my brain. Okay guys, I will be right back, she called toward the living room. Those words hit me harder than the noise behind us. I stepped between her and the door without even planning it. Back from where? I asked, palm flat against the wood. She adjusted the strap on her shoulder and avoided my eyes. Just errands, nothing dramatic, I will be quick. My stomach dropped because I finally saw the setup. Who is here with them if you go? I asked slowly. Her eyebrows lifted like the answer should be obvious. You connect with them, they adore you. She reached for the handle and tried to nudge past me. I did not move, and her hand froze inches from it. In the next room, someone yelled my name and something crashed. She jerked her head toward the sound and gave a tiny shrug. See, they already expect you, you're good at this. She used the chaos like evidence against me in real time. I could feel my pulse beating in my throat. I agreed to an hour, not an entire day, I reminded her. I kept my voice low, but every word came out tight. She blew out a breath and stared at the ceiling for a moment. You are being rigid, we both know you had open time. That line landed like a slap because it erased my choice. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I knew who it was. Her sister's name flashed across the screen with a long message. Thank you again, we could not have done this without you. There were heart emojis stacked like little bricks of pressure. I locked the screen before those words could soften me. One of the boys ran up and grabbed my wrist. Can you fix the controller? It is not working again. He tugged harder when I did not answer right away. Give us a second, champ, we're talking grown-up stuff. He huffed and wandered off, still listening from a distance. She watched him go and pounced on that moment. He trusts you, they all do you really want to bail? She leaned in close, her voice almost sweet, almost pleading. This is the kind of thing that shows who you are. That last P. Art hooked straight into my pride. I am not proud of how long I stood there silent. Part of me wanted to prove I was dependable, steady, solid. Another part felt like I was being used as a prop. I could feel those parts wrestling while she waited me out. She knew exactly which version of me usually won. I forced myself to look directly at her instead. I will watch them for 60 minutes, then I go. I held up one finger between us to make it visual. After that, either you are here or they are picked up. If my voice shook, it was from holding that line. Her jaw clenched and her whole expression changed in a breath. Oh, come on, you cannot seriously clock out on children. She folded her arms across her chest like she was bracing. This is not some shift at a store, this is real life. Now I was not just unhelpful, I was apparently immoral. In real life, people ask before they commit others, I answered. If I say yes now, you will treat it as a habit. She opened her mouth, then paused, which told me I was right. I watched the calculation move across her face, fast and quiet. She hated that I had called out the pattern. From the couch, the oldest kid cleared his throat deliberately. We can hear you, you are not whispering. His voice cracked halfway through and he looked embarrassed. He kicked the table leg and kept his eyes on the floor. I suddenly felt like the villain of some after-school special. She softened instantly when she heard him jump in. Everything is fine, she called out, smoothing her tone. We are just figuring out the plan for the day. Then she dropped her voice again and drilled back into me. You are making this into drama when it could be simple. Simple, that word almost made me laugh out loud. Nothing about surprise childcare for 5 kids is simple. Nothing about being volunteered behind your back is simple either. I rubbed my temples once and tried to keep my thoughts clear. I knew if I caved now, this would become the default. I am not staying the whole afternoon, I repeated, slower this time. You can run one quick thing while I keep them busy. I pointed at the clock on the wall like a deadline. When the hand reaches there, I am walking out that door. I needed her to understand this was not a bluff. She stared at the clock, then back at me, eyes sharp. You know what this feels like? She asked, voice suddenly icy. It feels like you only help when it is convenient for you. Her words hit every insecure spot I have about being selfish. I almost broke right there, which she probably counted on. I stepped away from the door but did not leave the entry. This is not about convenience, this is about being respected. My hands were shaking and I shoved them into my pockets. If you want a partner, you cannot just sign me up. I heard my own frustration and knew we had crossed a line. She opened her messages and began tapping fast with her thumb. You know what, forget it, I will figure something out. Her tone had that flat calm that hides a storm. She stared at the screen, jaw set, not looking at me once. That scared me more than the raised voice from earlier. While she typed, the little girl walked over and hugged my leg. Are you leaving us today? She asked, voice very small. I looked down and my throat locked up for a second. Not right this moment, I managed, resting a hand on her shoulder. Her eyes stayed on my face like the answer mattered a lot. My girlfriend glanced up at that and scoffed under her breath. Look at her, how can you even think about walking out? She slipped her phone into her pocket with a sudden snap. You know what I told my sister? She asked, squaring up to me. I told her I could count on you more than anyone. I wish that compliment had felt genuine instead of like a weapon. I could feel my chest tighten and my ears get hot. It is hard to stand your ground when someone frames it like that. You start questioning yourself, wondering if you are actually cold. That doubt is exactly what makes this kind of push so effective. Still, there was a different feeling underneath my guilt this time. A quiet anger that I kept shoving down finally moved upward. I thought about all the small assumptions I had let slide before. How often I had gone along just to keep the peace. That pattern was staring me in the face with 5 witnesses. I am here for 1 hour, I repeated, clear and steady. I will play, I will help, I will keep them safe. After that, I am leaving, no matter who is upset. Her eyes widened like she had not expected me to double down. For once, I did not soften the ending of a sentence. She took a step back and looked me up and down. "Fine," she said finally, every syllable clipped and hard. "Do what you want, I will remember this conversation though." Then she walked around me, unlocked the door, and pulled it open. As the kids swarmed toward me with questions, I watched her disappear, already knowing this fight was nowhere near over. 10 minutes after she walked out, one of the boys started crying. Not a soft whimper, a full body wail that shook the room. The younger twin yelled that his brother cheated at the racing game. The oldest told them both to shut up and toss the controller. I stood in the middle of all that noise and thought, this was planned on me. "Pause everything," I called out, clapping once louder than I meant. 4 faces swung toward me, wet cheeks, red eyes, annoyed scowls. The little girl clung to my leg like I was base in a game. I took a breath and forced my tone down before I snapped. That was the only way I was getting through the next hour. "New rule," I said, holding up my hands so they focused. "We take turns, we switch when the timer goes off, no arguing." I set a timer on my phone and put it on the table. They watched the countdown like it was some sacred instrument. I watched it because that screen was my lifeline out. For a while, it kind of worked, which annoyed me. They argued, but they stuck to the turn system more than I expected. I grabbed some snacks, refilled drinks, untangled a headphone mess. I did the whole routine, the thing everyone assumed I loved. Part of me did not hate it, and that messed with my head. Every few minutes, my eyes slid back to the clock on the wall. I could feel the limit creeping closer like a slow elevator. I reminded myself I had said it out loud more than once. 60 minutes, not a full shift, not some endless stretch. I knew if I budged, this would turn into their proof later. "Are we doing anything else?" the oldest asked, flopping back. He pushed his hair off his forehead and studied me, waiting. "You look stressed," he added in that blunt way kids have. "I am watching the time," I answered, trying not to dump on him. He shrugged, but I could tell he registered more than he let on. The little girl climbed up on the couch beside me. "Are you mad at Auntie?" she whispered, breath warm on my arm. I stared at the paused game screen and chose my words carefully. "I am not mad at you," I told her, which was true at least. She nodded like that was enough, but her grip stayed tight. When the clock finally hit the hour mark, my shoulders loosened. For exactly 3 seconds, I felt relief, like a promise kept. Then reality landed again, because she was not there. I pulled out my phone and opened our conversation without thinking. My thumb hovered for a second before I typed anything. "Time's up, where are you?" I stared at that line, then added one more sentence. "I told you I can only stay 1 hour today." I hit send before I overworked it into something softer. If I started padding it, I knew I would cave. The kids went back to their game like nothing changed. My phone buzzed before I even locked the screen. "Relax, almost done, traffic is awful, be there soon." That string of words did not answer anything important. I felt my jaw tense again as I read that soon. Looking back, that was the moment I should have called her. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, stared at the sink, and counted. 10 slow breaths in and out, like I could exhale the guilt. Behind me, someone shouted my name, followed by a loud thump. I spun around, convinced someone had cracked their head open. One of the twins lay on the rug, acting dramatically hurt. The oldest stood over him, hands up, swearing they just bumped. "I touched him like this," he insisted, tapping his own shoulder. The injured one peeked at me from under his arm and smirked. They were already trying to see what would make me react. "Everybody sit," I ordered, pointing to the floor around the table. "We are taking a break from screens before someone actually gets hurt." Groans erupted like I had canceled a holiday, long and drawn out. The little girl wandered over and started stacking coasters into a tower. My phone burned in my pocket, unread but not forgot. I checked the time again and felt the number punch my chest. 15 minutes past the limit, no sign of her, no update. I opened our messages and saw nothing new after that soon. I typed another line with less patience and no emoji this time. "I am serious, I need you or their parents here now." No answer. I watched the typing indicator pop up, then disappear twice. She was there, looking at my words, choosing to wait me out. That realization hit harder than any traffic excuse she could use. She was gambling that I would not actually leave. "Are you going to work?" the oldest asked, breaking my thoughts. He had that suspicious look kids get when they smell adult drama. "You kept checking the time before too," he pointed out quietly. Part of me wanted to lie just to keep things calm. Instead, I decided to risk being honest, at least halfway. "I have things I need to do later," I told him. "I told your aunt I would be here for a set time." He looked at the clock, then at me, and whistled low. "Yeah, she does that," he muttered, more to himself than to me. That tiny comment stuck with me longer than any complaint. 20 minutes over now. At that point, I knew this was not an accident. I scrolled through my contacts until I found her sister's name. My thumb hovered again, but I forced myself to press call. If I did not escalate, nothing would change next time either. She answered on the third ring, voice breathless and annoyed. "Please tell me nothing is on fire. I am in the middle of something." I stepped into the hallway so the kids would only catch fragments. "Your kids are fine, but my hour is up. I need relief." The silence on her end stretched long enough to feel heavy. "You are kidding, right?" she finally answered, the irritation obvious now. "We scheduled everything around you watching them this afternoon." I stared at the closed apartment door and felt my pulse spike. "No one told me that," I replied, keeping my tone flat on purpose. "I agreed to 1 hour, not an open-ended shift." She let out this short laugh that had zero humor in it. "Wow, okay, so you're clocking out like a teenager." I gripped the phone tighter and leaned against the wall. "I am asking you to send someone or come get them. Because I am leaving soon, with or without backup." In the background I heard muffled chatter, maybe another adult. "He says he is leaving," she told someone, not even covering the mic. Then more noise, a sigh, some shuffling, like plans were rearranged fast. "Give me 30, she snapped back into the call. "Do not you dare walk out and leave them alone." "I would never leave them alone," I answered, anger finally cracking through. "But I am not staying here for free all day either." There was another pause, then a quieter response from her. "We will talk about this later, just keep them alive until I arrive." The call disconnected before I could say anything else. I slid the phone into my pocket and walked back inside. 5 faces turned toward me, each at a different level of concern. "Who was that?" the boy with the racing obsession asked. "Your mom," I answered, dropping my voice so it stayed calm. "She is on her way, so we are getting you packed up." Instant energy. The twins started arguing over who owned which toy. The little girl ran to find her stuffed animal under a cushion. The oldest watched me with this guarded look, like he knew more. "Is Aunt coming back too?" he asked very quietly. "I do not know yet," I admitted, which felt weirdly good to say. It was the only true statement I could give at that point. He nodded once and began helping the younger ones gather their stuff. That kid was more of an actual helper than half the adults involved. I hated that he was the one picking up the emotional slack. While they scrambled, my phone finally lit up again. Her name appeared with a shorter message than I expected. "What are you doing? My sister is freaking out." I stared at it, then typed back with my thumb shaking. "Told her the deal, 1 hour is done, she is coming." This time, there was no typing bubble at all. The silence through that screen felt louder than the kids bickering. My brain started running ahead, picturing the conversation waiting for me. I knew I had poked at something bigger than one afternoon. There was no chance this got swept under the rug now. The doorbell finally rang again, sharper than before. The kids sprinted ahead of me like they had been set free. I opened the door to her sister, hair messy, eyes tight. "Get your stuff," she called past me, voice strained and clipped. Then she looked straight at me like I was an unpaid bill. "You really could not just hang in a little longer?" she asked. "No hello, no thanks, just straight to the accusation." Behind her, I noticed another relative waiting near the stairs, arms crossed. Apparently, this entire thing had turned into a mini rescue mission. I felt about 2 inches tall and 10 times angrier. "I stayed past what I agreed to," I told her evenly. I called when it became clear no one was coming. The kids buzzed around us, stuffing items into bags, bumping knees. The little girl wrapped her arms around my waist without warning. "Do we have to go?" she asked, voice wobbling. Her mother watched that, and her expression flickered for a second. "I do not want them feeling unwanted," she muttered, more to herself. She shifted her focus back to me with that same sharp glare. You made this way more complicated than it had to be. That line almost pushed me over, but I swallowed what I wanted to say. Just then, footsteps echoed on the stairs, quick and familiar. My girlfriend appeared at the top, out of breath, phone in hand. She spotted her sister first, then the bags, then me by the door. Her face went through about 3 reactions in 5 seconds. Shock, then fury, then something colder that scared me more. What are you doing? She asked her sister, voice rising. We talked, I told you I was almost back, why are they leaving? Her sister pointed straight at me like I was the problem. Ask him, he called and threatened to walk out, she answered. The word threatened hit my ears like a charge in a courtroom. My girlfriend turned on me so fast it almost made me flinch. Seriously, she asked, eyes wide, hands open in disbelief. You were going to abandon 5 kids because of your schedule. The kids all went quiet at the word abandon, even the twins. I could feel 5 little pairs of eyes drilling into my back. I stepped out into the hallway and pulled the door behind me. I told you more than once I had a limit, I reminded her. I am not a free babysitter you can just assign to people. She laughed short and harsh, like I had cracked a bad joke. I never asked you for money, just support, like a partner. That word partner used to feel warm, now it felt like a trap. Partners talk before they hand over each other's time, I answered. If helping your family means I never get a say, that is not partnership. Her sister shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to leave this mess. The kids stood in a clump, hugging their bags, absorbing every syllable. You embarrassed me, my girlfriend finally said, voice shaking with anger. I told them you were dependable, I bragged about you, I trusted you. She jabbed a finger toward the family group behind her. Now they think you are flaky and selfish because you pulled this stunt. The twisted part was, I knew that version of the story would spread. I will not keep doing this, I answered, feeling something settle inside. I am willing to help, but it has to be discussed. No more surprise drop-offs, no more telling people I already agreed. Her eyes filled not with tears but with a hard, bright rage. Then maybe you are not the person I thought I was dating. Her sister cleared her throat, breaking the standoff for a second. We really need to go, she muttered, shifting her purse on her shoulder. She nudged the kids toward the stairs, their shoes squeaking on each step. The smallest one looked back at me until the last second. I lifted a hand in a weak wave and felt like I had failed everyone. My girlfriend watched them vanish, then faced me again, quieter now. You could have just gone along this one time, she said slowly. And then we would have talked and set better rules, you know that. I thought about the unread messages, the extra 40 minutes, the assumptions. For once, I did not let her rewrite what just happened in front of me. This was you testing how much you can load on me, I answered. And now you are mad that I did not break the way you predicted. She stared at me like she did not recognize who she was hearing. Congratulations, she whispered, voice flat, you proved you can walk away. She brushed past me into the apartment, leaving that sentence hanging between us like a threat still waiting to cash in. My phone started buzzing again before the door even closed. She walked straight past me to the couch and sank down hard. No eye contact, just the glow of her own screen in her hands. The vibration in my pocket felt louder than her silence. I already knew this was not going to stay between us. In the bedroom, I plugged my phone in and finally checked it. The family group chat sat at the top with a fat unread count. I opened it and the screen filled with blocks of text. My name jumped out in 3 different messages before I read anything else. That alone made my stomach twist. The first thing I saw was a long message from her sister. So he just refused to help and made me leave early. Under that, someone had replied, who walks out on kids like that? Another relative added, I thought he cared about you and the family. You can imagine how fun that was to read. I scrolled up a little and realized they had started earlier. There were updates from that morning before I even arrived. Dropping them at Nate's, he is taking over today, so grateful. Under that, my girlfriend had thrown in laughing emojis and hearts. It was like reading a schedule I never got handed. Then came the screenshots. My text to her sister about needing them picked up sat in a bubble. Right under it, her sister wrote, he is threatening to leave them alone. Nobody bothered to mention I had repeatedly said I would not do that. Context died the second that line hit the chat. The comments stacked fast underneath, each one a little sharper. Typical guys love kids until it takes real effort. Some people just want boyfriend benefits without responsibility. Must be nice to treat someone else's time like it is optional. Every sentence painted a version of me I barely recognized. I kept scrolling and then I froze on one message. It was from my girlfriend about an hour before I got home. Do not stress, Nada's Basie. Call our free built-in babysitter. Reading that once was not enough, my brain refused to accept it. I read it 3 times and felt something harden in my chest. I am not going to lie, that line knocked the wind out of me. Up to that moment, I still half believed this was just messy planning. That one sentence showed me it was something else entirely. She had already labeled me and advertised that version to her people. I was not a partner in that message, I was infrastructure. Looking back now, that is where my defensiveness turned into clarity. I had gone along with little things and told myself they were harmless. I had said yes without thinking and let her fill in the blanks. Reading her brag that I was free labor snapped that pattern in my head. I could not pretend we just misunderstood each other anymore. From the living room, I heard her phone ping again and again. The group chat kept updating while I watched in real time. Someone wrote, "I cannot believe he made the kids feel unwanted." Another message read, "If he loved you, he would never say no." That last part stung because I had heard a softer version from her. I typed something, erased it, then typed again slower. I dropped a single message into their busy conversation. For the record, I was never asked before being volunteered today. I added one more sentence before I could talk myself out of it. And I would never abandon your kids, I just refuse surprise unpaid shifts. The typing indicator popped up from 3 different contacts at once. My girlfriend's name appeared first with a short, sharp reply. "We will deal with this privately, please stay out of this thread." Then her aunt jumped in, "He is in here now, this is uncomfortable." It felt like I had walked into a room where they were already gossiping. I stepped back into the hallway and leaned against the frame. She sat curled on the far end of the couch, jaw set tight. Her screen lit up her face while her thumbs moved fast. She did not look up until she was finished sending whatever she sent. Then her eyes finally lifted to where I stood. "You just had to jump into the chat," she said, voice low. Her tone was not surprised, just deeply annoyed. "They were venting, you barging in made everything 10 times worse." She set her phone on the table like it was contaminated. Mine still buzzed in my hand like it disagreed. "They were tearing me apart with half a story," I answered. "And you let them think I almost left those kids alone." I walked closer and put my phone down beside hers. "You called me a free built-in babysitter, do you realize that?" Her mouth opened then closed, and I finally saw a crack. "I was joking," she said after a moment, shoulders lifting briefly. "Everyone knows you like spending time with them, that is all." She rubbed her temples like I was the one exaggerating. "You are blowing up one phrase because you feel guilty." That last part almost made me laugh from how backwards it sounded. "You told them I was taking over the whole day," I replied. "You knew I had not said yes to that, not clearly." I picked up my phone and pulled the chat back up. I showed her the message with my name underlined in blue. "Is this a joke to you, or is this how you describe me now?" She glanced at the screen, then pushed my hand away lightly. "Stop shoving it in my face, I already know what I wrote." Her voice went cold again, that calm, angry version I had started to dread. "I help my family every day, you know how hard it is for them. And yes, I thought you cared enough to join me without a contract." That hit 2 things at once, my empathy and my boundaries. I do get that her family has real problems, I am not blind. I also know the difference between helping and being taken for granted. Every time I tried to explain that, she framed it as lack of heart. It is exhausting being painted selfish for wanting a basic conversation. Another notification flashed across the top of her screen. She picked it up and swore under her breath before unlocking it. "They think you yelled at the kids," she said, eyes scanning the chat. "Did you raise your voice? Did you scare them?" Her stare came back to me, sharp and searching. "I clapped once to stop a fight, that was it," I answered. I was alone in there with 5 hyper kids and no backup. If I lost my temper, they would have heard that from you already. I felt my own voice rise a notch and forced it back down. Anger is easy to use against you later, trust me on that. She watched me carefully, like she was checking for cracks. Then she tossed her phone onto the cushion beside her. Look, from where they stand, this looks simple, she said. They see stressed parents and a guy who refused more time. Of course they are going to side with the people overwhelmed. And from where I stand, I asked, heat creeping back into my neck. It looks like my time is some community resource US. I'm out. I am not part of your childcare system, I am your boyfriend. The word sounded strange even to me in that moment. It felt smaller than I thought it would after everything. She folded her arms and stared at the dark TV screen. You think I have not bragged about you for months, she asked quietly. I told them you show up, that you take responsibility, that you are reliable. She dragged a hand across her face, tired more than anything. Now I look like I made you up. That was the part that almost pulled me off my position. I can admit that now my pride is not pretty. A big chunk of me wanted to fix her image in their eyes. To prove I was that convenient hero she promised them. That impulse is exactly what had got me twisted up here. So you promised them a version of me that never says no, I said. And now you are angry the real me has limits and needs input. She let out this rough laugh that sounded more defeated than amused. Everyone has limits, Nate, most people bend them when kids are involved. She looked at me then like she honestly could not see the line. My phone vibrated again on the table and we both glanced down. A new message sat at the bottom of the group chat. We can chip in some cash next time if that helps, her aunt wrote. As long as the kids feel welcome, that is what matters. At least someone had finally mentioned paying me for my time. She read it, then looked back at me with raised eyebrows. See, they are even willing to pay if that is the issue. Her voice had that sharp edge on the word pay. You could do them a favor and stop acting like a victim. That word victim flipped a switch I had been holding down all afternoon. This is not about money, I answered louder than before. This is about you telling people what I agree to before I agree. It is about you setting me up as the solution without asking. I pointed at the phone like it was our third witness. And when I push back, you act like I hurt children on purpose. She stared at me a long time, then finally looked away. You really think I masterminded some evil babysitting scheme? She asked. I am just tired and I trusted you to understand without a debate. She pulled her knees up and hugged them, eyes on the floor. You made today so much heavier than it had to be. Here's the thing though. Back then, part of me worried she might be right. Maybe I could have bitten my tongue and done one longer day. Maybe we would have talked quietly later and adjusted expectations. That is the version she was selling hard to me and everyone else. Then I thought about that one message again. Free built-in babysitter. She had typed that with her thumbs, smiling at her screen. No one forced her to phrase it that way, that was her view. Once you see yourself written down like that, it does not fade. I am not doing this again, I said, voice steady now. No more surprise handoffs, no more pre-written promises in your chat. If you want me involved, you ask clearly and you accept no as an option. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time I think she believed me. She also looked like she did not like the man standing in front of her. Neither of us talked for a long stretch after that. She scrolled through her messages, fingers tight around the phone. I sat at the opposite end of the couch and stared at the clock. Every small tick felt like space opening between us in real time. By then I knew this was not just about one chaotic afternoon anymore. She broke the silence first. So what happens now? Her voice cut across the room like another notification. She sat at the far end of the couch, knees pulled up, phone beside her. It felt like we were on opposite sides of a courtroom. I am not pretending today was normal, I answered. I kept my hands on my thighs so she could not see them shaking. We cannot just switch on a movie and act like nothing happened. She stared at the blank TV, not at me, jaw working slowly. Normal couples survive harder days than this, she finally said. That is the point, she added, turning toward me at last. When things get complicated, you either step in or step away. She gestured toward the door where her family had stood earlier. Today you pulled back and made everything heavier for everyone. In her eyes, my refusal weighed more than their assumptions. I leaned forward and laced my fingers together. From my side, I kept a promise to myself, I said. I told you my limit, I stuck to it, that matters to me. Back then I still felt guilty saying that out loud. Now I know that was the first honest sentence I gave myself. She scoffed and shook her head once, sharp and quick. A promise to yourself, she repeated, almost amused, almost disgusted. So your personal rulebook beats my family melting down. Her heel tapped the floor in a quick, impatient rhythm. I thought we were on the same team. Teams share information. And I answered, hearing my own anger rise. They do not sign each other up behind closed doors. You made decisions for me and then got mad, I noticed. Her eyes flashed, but she did not jump in right away. For a second I thought maybe that landed. She pulled her phone closer and unlocked it with a quick swipe. I showed you all the messages, I did not hide anything, she said. I told them you helped because until today that was true. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard like she wanted to type again. Now I do not even know how to explain this to them. You tell them the truth, I replied a little too fast. That you are the one who promised my time without asking. That I watched their kids longer than agreed and then asked for relief. That I never said I was some endless, on-call childcare solution. The words came out rough, but I meant every one. She flinched at the phrase on call more than anything else. You make it sound ugly on purpose, she said quietly. I wanted you more involved, not less, that was the idea. Her voice thinned out for a second, like she almost cracked. Then it hardened again and the moment passed. Let me ask you something, she said, leaning toward me. If they were our own children, would you also watch the clock? Would you also say 1 hour and then I am gone? She threw that question like a challenge she knew I hated. I could feel the trap built into it even as it hit. With our own kids there is a conversation in advance, I answered. There is planning, agreement, and actual shared life behind it. This was you using that hypothetical to excuse today. I dragged a hand over my face and tried to keep steady. Do not mix up parenting with you donating my time. She watched me for a long beat, searching my face. So you admit you would stay without limits for your own, she said. Good to know you have that in you somewhere. She leaned back and crossed her arms like she had scored a point. You just chose not to tap into it today. That is the kind of line that sticks in your head. Back then, it made me question myself harder than I want to admit. Now writing this, I see how manipulative it really was. She framed compassion like some faucet I refused to turn on. Not like something we both needed to protect and share. I am not your lesson for them, I said, voice lower now. I am not proof you can count on people no matter what. I am one person with a schedule and a breaking point. She rolled her eyes at the word schedule like it was petty. To her, anything less than total sacrifice sounded trivial. Another buzz came from the table between us. Her screen lit up with a fresh message from the group chat. She hesitated, then flipped it over so the light faced down. For what it is worth, they are angry with me too, she said. They think I should have pushed you harder. I let out a short, humorless laugh before I could stop it. Harder than calling me a hero in advance, I asked. Harder than promising me without even checking first. Harder than rewriting what happened in that chat. The look she gave me then was pure exhaustion. I am tired, Nate, she said, shoulders slumping for the first time. I am tired of being the one everyone leans on. When you pulled back today, it felt like one more person stepping away. Her voice shook on that last part and finally matched her eyes. I thought if anyone understood, it would be you. Here is where I could have folded. I could have walked over, wrapped my arms around her, apologized. I could have told myself I was being dramatic and unrealistic. That is what I did in other arguments before this one. This time something in me refused to go back to that pattern. I get that you feel alone in it, I said, softer. I do not want you drowning, I really do not. But I will not fix that by disappearing into your obligations. I want to be your partner, not your invisible staff member. Saying that out loud felt like stepping onto new ground. She wiped under one eye with the back of her hand. So what, you want a sign-up sheet? She asked, half mocking. Slot your name in when it suits you, leave the rest to us. She let out a shaky breath that tried to pass as a laugh. That does not sound like someone I can build a life with. That sounds like consent, I answered and heard my own voice steady. It sounds like both of us having the right to say no sometimes. It sounds like me not finding out my role from a group chat. I pointed toward the table where both our phones sat. That screen should not know more about my day than I do. She stared at the phones, then pushed hers farther away. I need someone who puts family first, she said after a pause. Not just his own plans, not just his own comfort. Her gaze came back up clear and sharp now. I am starting to think we want completely different things. I took that in and let it sit instead of fig. Ting immediately. Because maybe she was right, at least partly. She wanted an all-hands-on-deck culture around her relatives. I wanted boundaries and agreements and room to breathe. Those two visions were not lining up, no matter how we spun it. So maybe we both learned something ugly today, I replied. You learned I am not your automatic childcare solution. I learned you are willing to offer me as one without asking. I stood up because sitting still suddenly felt impossible. If that is a deal breaker for you, I would rather know now. She watched me walk to the doorway, not moving to stop me. You are really willing to risk this over a few afternoons, she asked. Her voice cracked slightly on the word this and hit me in the chest. Back then I hesitated right there, hand on the frame, heart racing. Now I see that moment as the real fork in the road. It is not about afternoons, I answered, still facing the hall. It is about how you handled them, how you spoke about me. It is about you trusting a fantasy version of me more than the real one. I turned back so she could see I meant every word. I am done being the guy in your stories who never pushes back. She swallowed hard and looked away toward the window. I do not know how to come back from this today, she said. If you stay, I need you to apologize to them, to me. I need you to tell them you overreacted and you are in next time. She laid it out like terms on a contract. There it was. Not compromise, not shared ground, just surrender with a nice bow. If I agreed, we would reset the counter and start over worse. Every time after this would be measured against that apology. I knew that in my bones more than I can explain. I am not saying that, I replied, the words heavy but clear. I will apologize for snapping if I snapped, nothing else. I will not pretend I imagined the screenshots or the promises. I shook my head slowly, more for myself than for her. I would rather be single than lie like that to keep peace. She flinched like I had actually hit her. So that is it, she asked, voice suddenly flat and distant. You would walk away instead of bending even a little more. I thought about how many times I had already bent over months. On this topic, I was finally at the end of that flexibility. I am not breaking up with you right now, I said carefully. I am saying I am not agreeing to your conditions. What happens next depends on whether you can live with that. Her face closed off at that, like a door quietly shutting. I guess I have my answer, she murmured. I grabbed my keys from the hook and slipped them into my pocket. I am going to clear my head for a while, I said. I will be back later and we can talk again if you want. She nodded once without looking at me, eyes fixed on the floor. It felt like leaving a room after pulling a fire alarm. Out in the hallway, my phone buzzed again in my hand. Another group message, more opinions from people who were not there. I muted the thread for the first time since she added me. That tiny gesture felt bigger than any line I drew all day. It was the first boundary I set that nobody else could talk me out of. Looking back now, we did not implode that night, not immediately. We tried to patch things up, had more quiet conversations, drew charts. For a while we danced around the same argument in softer language. But everything after that lived in the shadow of this one day. Because she never really stopped seeing me as the babysitter who refused. Whether we stay together long-term or not, that is almost secondary now. The part that matters for me is what I walked away with. I will never again wait to find out my role from someone else's messages. I will never again let love mean being available on demand for free. If that makes me the villain in their family story, I can live with that.